it was a concept that you saw with regards to the need for this kind of coalition. How did your background in engineering help you to come up with that thinking?
In the early 2000s, I was working in the industrial sector of, how can you say, providing solutions for the serial manufacturing industry, and they were facing a crisis of efficiency, so to speak, because until then there was the opinion that you can centralize the planning and operations for serial manufacturers with a centralized IT program and production and logistic planning system. So what we brought into there was a completely new paradigm in order to have them self-regulating their processes on demand. So that means kind of bringing it from a kind of communist centralized planning system to a more open market kind of philosophy in the industry. And to do that, we needed 15, 20 different other corporations in the sector of providing the necessary tools for the industry to heal themselves, if you want to speak in that terms. So that was a conglomerate of many different disciplines and many different companies that provide services or products that were needed in order to get that done. So I thought we might need something like that also for long COVID, because it's such a multisystemic disease, and you need experts, but you need many experts working in a collaborative manner if you want to solve that.
Yeah, that's very true. And what did you find, Valentina? Because you're dealing with the front line of patients all the time. Would you say that that was something that resonated with you when you thought of this?
Well, absolutely. So first of all, 2 years on in the pandemic, and we still have no accepted practices among medical practitioners that are on the table for people. And people still struggle with long COVID clinics. People complain about the services. People are left without any medical attention for 2 years. Now, where is this support coming from? From nowhere. People start organizing into groups. They go into social media. They try to find self-minded people. These groups grow bigger, and we see that over the world there are now over 180 million long COVID sufferers. Now, time goes on. We see new variants coming, and the problem is getting bigger and bigger as we speak. So the idea of coming together into something that would help connect these disconnected pieces of patients who need attention, medics who struggle to properly understand the disease, scientists who are underfunded, who cannot properly identify the scope of long COVID. And even though they are very smart and educated and passionate about what they do, they need some guidance between the patient and medics. So, and we have also providers of solutions who are ready to step in and help those who suffer, but it takes time. And 2 years on, we only find a couple solutions that are available, and all of them are natural compounds. And we are talking to several providers of those solutions, and it's nice to see them appearing, but coalition is something that would bridge these gaps that we see, and everything is patient-centered, and everything that we will do in this coalition will help those who suffer with information, with solutions, will speed up the process of people getting the right treatments when they need it.
Yeah, it's a big issue, It's that medicine has become very, what I call, siloed. We have become so specialized that what happens is that this kind of multiple systemic multiple organic disease is very, very difficult to manage. And so patients will find that they're shuttled from one specialist to the other, and nobody is able to specifically tell them what's going on. And actually, what is most concerning is that, based on the research I'm seeing as well, the closest description or the closest parallel to long COVID are diseases like chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. We have struggled to manage those kinds of diseases. So this is a huge task, and it could bear fruit for many other conditions that people have struggled with for long periods of time. Any thoughts on that, Joachim?
Yes, of course we can pull in, and we are doing that, pulling in experts from chronic fatigue syndrome or people that are very familiar with thrombotic conditions, and even therapies or even treatments that are used for these specific conditions that had nothing to do with long COVID per se. The only problem there again is that if you look at the whole picture of this disease, it is of course not all the same in all patients. But if you look at the descriptions, we are looking at more than 200 different pathways, maybe plus 100 more or less, if you depending how fine you want to break them apart. And so it will help to bring in these specialists, and many of them are also now expanding their view into long COVID. Like we have Michael von Elzaker, which drew us his attention to us in a couple of weeks ago, and he will be on the Congress because he is an expert coming from the central nervous system, MCAS, and gut-brain axis. So that is, of course, an expertise that comes in very handy. But again, now comes the next point is that, for example, into this particular field, you see other things playing into that. The second speaker or the first speaker on the Congress, Carlo Brogna, is describing a very disturbing process that is happening in the guts with even, I don't want to tell too much before the Congress, but so there are toxic peptides and there are bacteria being affected. And that plays again into the pathway that Michael is explaining in the ME/CFS, central nervous, gut-brain axis, and vagus nerve. So it is all kind of connected to each other, but it's many chains working together and pulling the patient in different directions. So what we need to do is not only pull in these single experts and have them describe one field, we have to build the bridges between them. And that can only be done in an international, interdisciplinary, and inclusive fashion. And that is the idea that brought us to set up this long COVID coalition in the first place.
Yeah, so it raises a challenge, though, and I think that one of the listeners has made this point, and I think he made it before. I'm going to ask you, Valentina, how do you cope with this perspective? Okay, stop the long COVID crap. Okay, well, and this is how a lot of people feel.
Yeah.
You know, how
So I feel really sorry about this person, and I hope this person is really healthy and will never catch COVID and will stay away from this disease. But over 180 million people were not so lucky, and I'm here to speak for them. And they're very much in a position that their life completely turned upside down. Children getting long COVID, families, they struggle financially, they are losing their jobs. It's happening now, and not seeing it's disgrace. Disgrace from all perspectives, because symptoms in long COVID are so bad that this disease is ruining lives. And if we are not coming together now, 2 years on, the problem gonna be on a larger scale. And long COVID is very serious, might be even chronic disease that will destroy more lives. And we are here to prevent this from happening. At least now we want to try and find solutions to help release these symptoms, because doing nothing means getting more serious diseases in 5-10 years time. And we see that from research from different chronic diseases that has led to Alzheimer's disease. And we'll see chronic organ failures. And this is happening now. We read these papers, we read newspapers that talk about the heart attack risk, which is increasing 75% a year on from anybody who contracted COVID, not necessarily developed long COVID, from COVID only. So the issue is massive. People can ignore that this is true, but this is true and we know it. So I will not go into these comments, and I know that people are struggling and they are listening to this channel with the hope that we will do something for them. And I'm here to help them.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that, Valentina. But it's just showing the reality of the challenge that is there in terms of overcoming some of the stigma. And this is why a lot of people who are struggling don't speak up. You know, they really, really are struggling, but they won't say anything. So I wanted to share, Joachim, is your vision on that you scratched on your piece of paper. This is exactly how, as Valentina said, an engineer would work. They have an idea and they draw it out. So just explain to us what you see in terms of this vision here.
Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing to have such a scribble only up there. I would have loved it, but yeah, you're assaulting us now to do that live. So to bring that into a perspective, there are already a lot of very talented and very successful scientists, doctors, and developers of products out there. That is not the question. What we have seen is it is usually a little bit narrow, and it does address a part of the problem. It does help many of the patients, sometimes in some patients better than in others, but nobody can really say, look, we can heal or we can bring long COVID sufferers back to health. So in order now to bring that, we have to always start from the patient's perspective. That means if what we do is not in the benefit of the patient, and the patient is not above shareholder value or financial interest or ego or be looking great scientifically, then we are doing something wrong here. So let us start from the patient and from the long COVID advocates. These are the people that we need to bring on board ASAP in a large number. That means, because we are watching the Facebook groups and Twitter groups and other groups where the long haulers kind of communicate to each other, sometimes desperately discussing different treatment options, different medications, different nutraceuticals. And so we see how much information they have and how much information there is still out there that might be very beneficial to everybody. So starting from the patient perspective, whom will the patient meet first? So the patient will first meet his medical professional, the clinics or institutions that are out there to help the long haulers, which are in their knowledge and in their ways and means that they have at their disposition to treat are sometimes very limited, to say it mildly. Then you have the manufacturers of drugs, therapeutics, medical technology, which I'm part of. And then you have also the manufacturers of diagnostics. So these are the first line of contacts between the patient and the industry. Behind that, on the right side, you see the part that now needs to be cranked up strongly and well coordinated. That is the research and development of their therapeutics, diagnostics, and proving that in clinical trials, and to connect all that and bring that all together so that the patients can undergo a combination treatment, sometimes between different methods and different kind of drugs or nutraceuticals, or also mechanical treatment like apheresis and these things. So what we are observing very carefully now is in the long hauler community, the information we get, even from our clients, what else have they done? Nobody can alleviate all the symptoms. So we are already identifying on the front of the therapeutic side some things that go well, maybe not in direct combination, but alternating. For example, we see that people that do apheresis and vedissus, or Maraviroc and apheresis, or something like that, have better results than people doing that one treatment alone. So we want to expand now the possible interventions and see in which combination they can be used for which patient cohorts with good results.
And so I'll ask Valentina this question then, is that some people would say, why don't you just wait for the experts? There are experts out there in different fields, let them do this work. Who are these experts?
Exactly. So I would definitely ask this first question. How do you define these experts? What are these experts? And to be honest, from my own experience, when you talk to cardiologists about the whole range of symptoms that you have, these cardiologists will only think about the cardiac issues, not about GI, not about neuro issues that person possibly has, not even linking to symptoms that may be overlapping with neuro symptoms. So what we are facing is very old-fashioned medical systems that need to be restructured somehow to understand long COVID better. And we are, I think, the driving force behind that, to help them understand the disease from multiple perspectives. And these experts, in my opinion, are those who potentially could get out of their small box and start reading something from different sciences, reading research which is out there available, analyzing long COVID from different perspectives. Neurologists who we are identifying, they're very knowledgeable about gut health, and they can link those diseases together to understand what is really happening. So these are experts who are not afraid to educate themselves with something new. Those are experts. If we are talking about long COVID clinics that are established in UK, there are many people very well educated, but they are, by the capacity of or the system or any protocols that they are given, they cannot explore anything else rather than what they have. And this is a huge problem, because none of the doctors will be in a capacity to say that people need to take supplements or vitamin D at the right dose, because there is no guidance, there is no policy that they need to advise that. If people ask, maybe, but not personally offering that. And this is a huge issue. This is definitely needing more attention on how to tackle long COVID from many other perspectives, not just from this little small box that many doctors are in. And I think the coalition is the great platform for searching for the right people to be on board, to be able to communicate about this disease to people in a language that is easy to understand, that will explore the disease from multiple perspectives, and will communicate that to people so people understand how serious the disease is, how to tackle it, and what solutions are there to tackle those symptoms. Even though we know that interventions like apheresis works, but we also starting to notice that this is not the end. People start to get these microclots again after some time. So we are here to raise awareness about those things, so people learn, people get up-to-date information on research, on success stories from people. And we are here again to support patients.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it raises just how complex what we're facing is. And just to highlight it from a clinical perspective, even if you just pick the disease like hypertension, we have so many drugs that we use and we combine depending on symptoms and the past medical history or the comorbidity of the patient. And there is no one drug that will work for everyone for hypertension. And I think that that's probably the picture that we're seeing with long COVID, is that there is never going to be any one simple thing that will suddenly get it all away. It's just how you integrate it depending on where that patient was beforehand, before they got the infection, and what they need in order to get better.
I
So,
think the most important bit also to say that coalition is here not to treat symptoms, not to label diseases, but going into the mechanisms behind those symptoms. And we are very keen to understand the deep processes what are happening on a very small levels inside the body, so that we targeting the particular mechanism behind all those symptoms that people experience. And this is unique, I think.
Yeah, and so as we're coming to wrap up, this is just a quick meeting today. Joachim, who do you want, as you put out that list in terms of the coalition, can anyone, so to speak, come on board with this kind of thing? What is your thought on that?
There are different angles to this. Okay, first of all, what we are doing at the moment still is to define the topics for the next congresses and to see which are the most urgent conditions that need to be looked at. And so it will always be the same kind of modus operandi. You look at the problem first. So we identify the researchers that have done a really good job in investigating and scientifically proving this mechanism is related to COVID or long COVID. Then we take these authors, get them on board, maybe on a congress, and then we get another group of scientists that are more into providing solutions, like myself or other colleagues that we have, be it in the pharmaceutical realm or in the nutraceutical realm or any other kind of intervention. And then we look what is possible for this particular problem that has been described, which kind of intervention makes a lot of sense there. And that is the way that this can grow. First, understand all the problems, see, and the next thing is then, of course, also these problems are all, our organism is, of course, interrelated in all different levels. So you cannot separate one condition and look at it as a single thing. It goes into other organ systems, it goes into other mechanisms and other fields of expertise. So actually the coalition's task will be then to connect these experts and make sense out of what they find and make them talk to each other on the overlapping issues. Like, for example, you were explaining me recently a mechanism that plays into let's say, into the neuro-COVID, let's call it that way. And so, but we see that the neuro-COVID is also related maybe to some gut issues. And so we need maybe some experts on the biome and on nutrition, because it involves amino acids, and you need to know exactly how much do you give of that, what is reasonable. So every field is connected with another field, and the coalition is an umbrella for all the researchers, for the medics involved, and for the industry involved to understand the scope of the problem, make sense of it, connect all these fields, and then the solutions. Because in the end, the long hauler wants to know, and what the hell can I do now? I have these and these symptoms, and who's going to help me with what? And so there will be no field that can address this thing completely. Impossible. We as nutraceutical providers can do a lot. Now it's very broadband. That's why we understood, and maybe we understand the disease, the scope of the disease better, because we are looking at all these single small mechanisms, and they can be very well covered, at least partially, with nutraceuticals. But if there is a heavy dysregulation, you want to bring in pharmaceuticals, and that's not our field. So now we have been talking to you guys for quite a while now and asking you what to do. But like you described, hypertension, you have to give 5 medications. And what about mast cell activation? What about hypersensitivity? What about thrombosis? What about many other fields? And then imagine what kind of cocktail you will result in. You might kill the people with the medications and not
Yes.
heal them from long COVID.
Yes. So wonderful, wonderful. So I just want to highlight to people again the fact that we have this Long COVID Coalition conference next Saturday, 30th of April, 1300 ET, at 6 o'clock UK time. There will be a link that will be coming up, and I'll put it in afterwards in the information here, so that you can click on attending for the conference, where we will be having 3 main speakers along with panelists who will then try and explore some of these concepts. So I really appreciate having both of you here today, Valentina and Joachim. And what we will do is we will see you all next week at the conference, and you'll be able to explore a bit more, asking questions on behalf of the public to the experts. And that should be very, very interesting. So again, reminding everyone, next week, Saturday at 6 p.m. UK time, make sure you come along, click on your attending button so that you'll be able to see the live or be able to see it afterwards. Thank you both very much for being here, and I'm sure we'll see you all as well next week.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice weekend. Thank you.
Okay.